And now, more Utalk. Now.
Hey guys, what's up? We've got a great show today for you. You are going to enjoy our guest. You're going to love our guest. Got a lot of great stuff to say. Our guest on the show today is Amanda Clark, founder of the Beauty Mark community. She's a new friend. She is an advocate for bringing about awareness to all disabilities, both seen and unseen. So we're going to ask her to join us now. Amanda?
Hello.
There she is. Hello there. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. It's so good to see you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss it.
Oh, this is awesome. Hey, where are you talking to us from? Where do you live?
So we're from South Jersey. We're from
wow.
Yeah, so we're pretty far. Yeah.
Love the East Coast. Haven't been there for a few years because of COVID, but thanks for taking time. Now, I want to digress for just like a brief minute, because at Utalk, we're foodies, okay? And every place I go, it's like, take me to the local place. But if you could only choose one food for the rest of your life, Amanda, what would that be?
I am a potato fan, so it has to be French fries.
Just plain French fries or anything on top of them?
Oh, so, maybe cheese.
Okay, maybe cheese. Yeah, there's a place out here that serves Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, and then they have tater tots, and you can get cheese on it. But anyway, I don't want to digress too much. We're both going to get hungry.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock here. I can't eat past that.
Okay, you were born with a disability. Tell us about it.
So, yes, I was born with a disability. I like to call it my beauty mark. And I was born actually in the 80s, and it's a funny story. When I was born in the 80s, there was pretty much nobody who looked like me. I'm actually 1 in 100,000 people that have this type of disability.
Mm-hmm.
And doctors it was just not as technical as it is today. And so when I was born in the 80s, they just pretty much assumed what I had based on pictures. And so it came up to be what's called Holt-Oram syndrome. And I believe they diagnosed me with this because I had a lot of internal issues as I was being born. I was screaming. And my mother had to be induced actually when she was about 5 months of pregnancy, because I had died in her womb. And so when I came out, I was actually I weighed a pound.
Wow.
And I was on a whole bunch of like tubes, and I had kidney failure and heart failure and all these things happening with me. And I think that based upon that, they assumed I had Holt-Oram syndrome. Well, forwarding into my adult years after having my third child, mind you, I was, assuming again that they were right and that this is my diagnosis. I have an older daughter. She's 13 years old. She has no limb differences at all. So I did not genetically pass down anything to her, which is absolutely astonishing.
Yes.
I have an older son, and he had the same thumbs as me. So I have a curved thumb here, and I have a little thumb here, but it's no bone. And it was the same on his hands, but he has all 5 fingers.
Interesting.
So kind of weird, because if I'm going to pass this down to someone, it has to like almost mimic the same exact way, right? But it didn't. So when I had my third child and we saw an ultrasound that he had the same radius as me, however, he doesn't have any thumbs at all. My youngest son only has 2 fingers on each hand, and he has what's called clubbed hands. I immediately wanted to get tested because I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, evidently, like we all 3 have different diagnoses. So I didn't know what to expect. Well, when he got diagnosed to see if he had a Holt-Oram syndrome, it came out negative. So I was like, okay, if he came out negative, then I can't have Holt-Oram syndrome. So I immediately got blood work done, and it turns out that I did not have whole arm syndrome. I was actually misdiagnosed for 27 years.
Oh, Amanda.
Yes. So, trying to move this story on, but it's actually pretty crazy. I still have no diagnosis till this day. I've been getting blood work and poked and prodded ever since, and there is just no diagnosis for me. However, in the disability,
crazy.
This happens often where a lot of people who were born, in the 80s, in the 90s, there was no diagnosis to be found for them. And so they end up self-diagnosing themselves. And that's exactly what I did. And I believe I have TAR syndrome.
Interesting.
So, the doctrine speaking on that, aspect, I am not diagnosed. But for me, I really do believe I have TAR syndrome.
Interesting that you would have that they still can't, fully diagnose you, but yet you've come up with this diagnosis on your own.
Yes.
And you're a miracle. I mean, you really are. I'm going back to something you said just a couple minutes ago, that you died in your mother's womb. I mean, you weren't just a preemie. I mean, 5 months.
Yeah.
And to have died in your mother's womb, and then you come out, and I mean, it's amazing that we can sit and have this conversation. It's amazing that you have 3 children, and all the things that you're doing, and you got a smile on your face.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's awesome. It really is. Now, your organization is called the Beauty Mark Community.
Yes.
Now, I want you to tell our audience where this comes from, because when I read it on your website, it fascinated me, and it's huge for other people to grab a hold of.
Wow. I'm truly humbled by that, by the way. It actually sparked with a act of kindness, to tell you honestly. I had always grown up with that question, what happened to your arm, by millions of people.
Yeah.
And it's such a loaded question, because from what I just told you about my diagnosis, that's just one aspect of my life. And then this was just another one. So it was just like, well, what do I say? I don't know. Like, I was born this way. Or you say that to people, they don't know how to grasp that. So I really didn't know how to, acknowledge it, and how to demonstrate the best version of myself to other people, to understand. And so I had always just said, this is the way I was born, or this is my disability. But I felt like I wasn't representing myself or my community.
Okay.
Right. And so I remember being in a group of friends. I was a teenager at the time, and I was with a group of friends. And one of my friends, he was a really good friend of mine. His name is Frankie. I would never forget him. I actually interviewed him because of this. We were teenagers, and I remember going into this, we were about to hit another group of teenagers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're about to ask me a bunch of stupid questions, because at the time I was very still ashamed of myself. I did not want to be asked. And so we go in there, and lo and behold, it's exactly, they saw me, they were really about to ask me questions. But before I could even speak, he said, hey, it's her beauty mark. Like, just leave her alone. And I was like, wow, like, yeah.
Frankie, dude, you got that. Hello, that was great.
I was like, wow. I mean, just one word, but like, it described everything about myself that I wanted to be represented as. And, I didn't do anything right then and there, but that word stuck with me for about 12 years. And I had to do something about it. Like, I didn't know what, but I had to do something about it. So, funny story, Beauty Mark Community has never, I don't think I ever shared this, but Beauty Mark Community was never always called Beauty Mark Community. It was Imperfect Warriors.
I like that too, though. Really. I mean, it's the visual on both of them are so cool.
Yeah.
But
I ended up talking with a mentor of mine, And, because I really wanted to, when I wanted to start this organization, I was really serious about it. I knew I had to put like a ton of money into it and make it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was talking with a mentor of mine just to kind of like get the business aspect of it. And as I'm
Sure.
her, she's like, well, why do you keep calling it Imperfect Warriors, but you're naming the people Beauty Mark brother and Beauty Mark sister? She was like, I see your radiance, like whenever
Yes.
Beauty Mark. And I was like, well, yeah, because it means so much to me. And I started talking. She was like, well, what is it to you? And I was like, it's my community. And she was like, okay, Beauty Mark. And I was like, Beauty Mark community. Like,
I love it. That is so cool. It is so descriptive. And it's positive. I mean, Imperfect Warriors, I get that, and that's visual. But the Beauty Mark kind of takes you by surprise a little.
yeah.
And, no matter what kind of disability somebody has, you got Beauty Mark brothers, Beauty Mark sisters. And, I noticed something on your website when you talked about seen and unseen disabilities,
Yes.
which is huge. This is such a great topic that we don't spend enough time on. Now, I've been told by a number of people that teens, our show is for young adults, teens with disabilities get bullied more than others. Did you experience that? And do you agree with that statement?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would even dare to say that individuals with disabilities have it a hard time coming from adults than they do children. I know that for me, my worst years were in middle school and high school.
Oh.
I remember it had gotten so bad that in high school I was ready to end my life. I was going to take a shoestring and I was going to really end my life in the bathroom stall. I had gotten really, the bullying. I gotten tired of just honestly surviving, and I couldn't even, get my education properly because I was just so focused on just making it through the day. And I believe that is from the lack of awareness that's in the school. Just because they're just intimidated, not knowing what to say or what not to say, and
Yes.
do and not to do, to make it like suitable for everybody and be comfortable for everybody. But there is definitely a way, and that's what I'm working on now, to introduce that into the school system. But I most definitely agree with that the numbers do not lie, and apparent. If I can give you statistics, it most of the bullies that have done the shootings in the schools, the children who have done the school shootings, if you look at their background, almost 93% of those children had disabilities, and they were
really. Of all the shooters, really. Now, it's interesting, Dan, I go back to your phrase of seen and unseen, because when you see pictures of them,
right, you can't tell.
You can't really tell, but that's a huge statistic. And, it breaks my heart to hear you say that you wanted to end your life. I speak on schools, before COVID, although actually this last school semester, I was able to do a bunch of Zoom things in schools, which is really fun. But I've just lost track of the number of students who would come up to me afterwards and say, Steve, I tried to kill myself. I really didn't want to die. I just want the pain to stop. I can't take the pain. And you have inspired me, Amanda. When I can get back into the schools, I'm definitely going to add, I talk about choices, and I'm going to add the whole thing about disabilities, and we should celebrate each other's differences.
Absolutely.
I really think because if we were all the same, it'd be pretty boring. And I mean, really, and listen to people's stories. That's what I love about doing this show. Unfortunately, our other hosts are not here. In fact, one of them, Katie, really wanted to be here. She's actually in the hospital as we speak. she's battling chronic illness.
Wow.
And, she,
An internal beauty mark that people really need to understand.
they really do, and for her, she's got to carry this backpack. I told her the other day, I said, it's got to weigh 30 pounds at least because she's got these 2 pumps and IV stuff and all that. But I'm not glad to hear you confirm again about the bullying, but people are so mean. And the worst part now, I mean, I love social media because of what we can do with it. I mean, we're having this conversation. You're in South Jersey. I'm in Southern California. I mean, we're coast to coast having a great time. So without technology, we couldn't do this. But the problem with technology, and you know this as well as I do, we've had so many middle school, high school students kill themselves because you can't run from social media. When somebody goes after you in just this mean way, it's there. It's there 24/7. It's staring at you. Other people are seeing it. And it just bothers me because I don't want to go to another teen funeral. I don't, and I love it when students come to me after an assembly and say, hey, thanks for saving my life. And it's like, what did I do, And I was going to go home and kill myself.
Wow.
But you made me realize that I was valuable and that I mattered. And the interesting, it's just hitting me now. I don't know physically, if I looked at him, I didn't see anything different, but they may have had that unseen disability. So thank you for, making me more aware. I'm really grateful for that. And I think with Utalk, we need to emphasize some more of this. How do we inform and educate, especially students, because this is, teens and young adults who are not familiar with a disability lifestyle. I mean, they can pick on somebody and make fun of them or whatever, but there's a lifestyle. I mean, I know that with Katie, with these chronic illnesses, and it's a different kind of disability, certainly. But how can we, and I know that's really a huge question. We probably could spend, a whole show just talking about that, and maybe we should sometime. Just kind of the tip of the iceberg. How can we help those understand? And I'll use the word educate. I guess it's in part education.
It's actually quite simple. And I think that a lot of people, I don't want to say think too hard about it, but at the same time, it goes back to what I said about not knowing, am I going to offend somebody if I say this, or am I going to support them by saying that? Mm-hmm. And it actually boils down to one thing: authenticity.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's so big in life. I mean, just being authentic, being genuine, being real.
Right.
I love it. So in other words, is that somebody like myself who I don't have a disability, although some of my friends say I've lost my mind, but but I don't have it. But is it just being authentic with somebody that I meet and just share with me, talk to me? Is that what it's all about?
You being yourself is going to have other people open up and be themselves. And I think that when it comes to children, this is so easy to me. I think that children are the perfect example of this because so usually when I'm being asked what happened to my arm, it's by a child, and they're coming to me coming to me in a way where they're being sarcastic or, or like they genuinely want to know. And so usually what stops them from wanting to know is the parent. They'll, shush their kid or tell their kid, hey, come behind me and apologize to me as if their child did something wrong. And I have to step in and say, no, your child is actually doing what they're naturally supposed to do.
Sure.
They're asking questions. This is great, and so with children, I usually do an illustration of Nemo and Dory because this is the way that they can understand. Got to go to their level.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Nemo and Dory is a perfect illustration. And the reason why we use Nemo it from the movie Finding Nemo is because Nemo has a physical disability, right? Nemo has a big fin and he has a little fin, right? But why
Yes.
introduce Dory? Because Dory has an internal disability that you can't see, but we know that it's evident. She has a short-term memory loss. And so
Interesting.
introduce Nemo and Dory to the children, they're like, oh, wow, And so we regroup and we say, okay, well, what do they have in common, right? Because now that we know that they're different, but what do they
Yeah.
have in common? And the common thing is that they're fish, that they still swim and that they're
Yeah.
in water, right? And then
Sure.
say we're human and we still have a heart and we still have feelings and we still breathe. And so they now know that even though I'm different and you're different, we're still alike more than we are.
Yeah.
And so this is a great way to illustrate to children, right?
Absolutely.
How do you illustrate this to teenagers, right? Because if you can't like, I mean, I could tell this Nemo and Dory to anybody, right?
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
these are teenagers we're talking about. So they have to be more like hands-on. You got to be hands-on with them. And so
Okay.
we play a game with them during our presentations. And we play a game called I Can, You Can. And what we do is, so I make them gather a sneaker, right? So they usually take off a sneaker from their,
Okay.
and I take off my sneaker and
Okay.
we tie the sneaker, right? And so the whole time, I'm not even talking about my arm. I'm not even talking about my hands, but I know that they're watching me, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to tie the shoe and I'm going to see who does it faster, either me or you, right? And we're like, 1, 2, 3, and we tie the shoe, right? And we see who finishes first. Now, I'm going to tell you, Steve, I'm usually really good at this game, and I usually finish faster than the kids, right?
Sure.
And so at the end of the game, they're like, oh, man, she finished fast. And I said, can I ask you a question? They said, yeah, what? And I said, did you notice that I finished faster than you? They say, yeah, why? And I'm like, did you notice I had a little arm? They're like, no. And I'm like, I could do what you can do. I just do it in my own way. See, authenticity, you get that authenticity is what works, because in a moment's time where everybody's worrying about, well, what can I say? What can I do to bring this awareness? You just being yourself is awareness enough. You don't have to prove anything. Just being you is what's going to set the atmosphere. And so this is what we're showing kids, that it's okay to be amongst the crowd where
Sure.
you find somebody who may be standing out amongst others. We were all made to stand out, but if you have somebody else who's really standing out like me, and you're in the crowd, just know that we're okay to talk to. We're okay to hang out with. We can have fun too. And this is what we're kind of like just building character,
Sure.
for those who don't understand what it's like to live in our shoes. And so I hope that helps.
Oh, that's all. That is huge. I mean, I love the shoe. I love the Nemo thing, but I love the shoe thing because what you just said is so great. It's like, did you even notice,
Right.
About my arm? And when I was, and it's like they're totally oblivious to that,
Yeah.
we should be. We should be oblivious to. Okay, we're different, but we're still human.
Exactly.
That's really, really good. I love that illustration. I love both of them, but especially the one for older kids, for students, teens and young adults. Okay, everyone deserves the right to be seen, to be heard, and valued.
Yes.
You use the word human. I love that. We're all human. Can we not value each other, but especially someone with disabilities, because they're the ones that I think are the brunt of the jokes, kind of pushed off. And I won't even use the word fear. It's just it's a misunderstanding. You just don't understand it. So at Utalk, we're really big about making a change, going mad, making a difference, being the change. How can, and I know there's probably a lot more to it. I don't want to oversimplify, but is there one thing or two things we can all do to make our brothers and sisters who have disabilities feel like they're being seen, like they matter?
Yeah.
Feel like they're being heard. That's so huge with everybody, but especially with somebody who's different in one sense.
Yeah.
And we want them to feel valued. So how do we do that, Amanda? Is there a couple things where we can start? I know we've got this authenticity, which is
Right.
huge. So how do we build on that? I'm assuming that's kind of one of the pieces
Oh, yeah.
that we build on.
Being authentic is definitely one of the pieces. But what the major piece of the puzzle is, always watch before you assume.
Oh,
Yeah.
say that again.
Yeah, watch before you assume. I say this often because people within the disability community, we know how to navigate having
Mhm.
we've some have been born this way, some have adapted to this way, and so we've learned how to adjust to our lifestyles. And so people not in the disability community, I often am seeing them like rush to help or rush to do things,
Mhm. Mhm.
just assuming that we're incapable or assuming
Sure.
that we can't do something. And this is why I say watch before you assume. And I give this illustration all the time for both the disability and non-disabled community. So one time I was in a supermarket and I was carrying my son. He was a baby at the time, little infant. And I'm getting ready to put him into the shopping cart. And
Uh-huh.
a stranger came from behind me. She walks into the supermarket. I've never seen her a day in my life. Takes my son out of my hands and puts him in the cart and just keeps walking.
Oh.
She didn't ask me, did I need help? She did not ask me, could she carry my son? She didn't even say thank you. She just kept moving. And even though that moment made me
Wow.
so small as a woman,
Mhm.
and as a person with a disability, I chose how I was going to approach her. Okay, so I tell people all the time within the disability community, when we're out in public, you're the greatest representation of the disability community. Whether people want to listen to your story or not, that's totally up to them. But the way you approach somebody can always dictate how they will feel against a person with a disability.
Yeah.
So I had a choice to make, Steve, because at this point, the mama bear wanted to come out and be like, what are you doing? Like,
Mama bear, look out.
like, who does that? This is my kid. Like,
Yeah.
but I had to calm down and took a breather. And I said to myself, you know what? Maybe she really doesn't know. And I started to really reevaluate adults who do things like this. And I started looking at them as the child that was never taught about disability.
Oh.
And so once I started looking at them like this, then the insecurities that I have had in that moment got demolished, because now I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm up against. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, this is huge
Yeah.
because really what you're saying is it's a two-parter.
Right.
It's, on one hand, it's the person who does not have a disability and they're, in a sense, we'll say like this lady, innocently wanting to help.
Exactly.
And I could see myself, doing that. I can be kind of a rescuer sometimes, and I've been in, I won't digress to other things, but I've been involved with some rescue kind of things, and it's like, are you crazy?
Exactly.
And, well, no, I saw this, and now I'm saying, okay, I need to start watching more, be ready to help if necessary, watching more before assuming. But on the flip side, those in the disabled community also, it's a learning experience for
Yeah.
them.
There has to be, right now, I really believe that there's no barrier of communication. So being said, there's just like this huge wall up, right? And people within the disability community are like, don't call me this, don't call me that, don't treat me like this, don't treat me like that. It's ableism, right? And then on the outside of the disabled community, they're like, well, what do we call you? How do we approach you? What do we say? What do we do? You know what? Let me just leave you alone because I don't know what to actually do. And so now you have people who just don't want to know because they don't want to offend someone. And then people who want to bring awareness, but they're not necessarily knowing how to do it.
Sure.
So, like this barrier of communication. And my job, Steve, is to break that. Because it's going to cost two parts, just like I said. And this incident that happened to me is a perfect illustration. So I went up to her and I said, you know what? I really truly believe that you had the greatest intentions on helping me out, because you don't know what it's like to live in my shoes.
Sure.
But I've been doing this for, how old was he at the time? For like 4 years. I said, I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm pretty good at it. And she started laughing. And I said, can I actually share with you some, information about my disability? And she said, sure. And we got to talking, and I told her about Beauty Mark Community, and she was just really intrigued by it. Now, that could have been twisted.
Yes.
If I went up to her and I yelled at her or cussed her out.
Oh, absolutely.
It could have been really, really bad. And then she was like, that's another disabled person that's miserable and blah, 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 whatever. But that would have been the representation of what she would have had from a person in a disability community. So yes, it's going to cause some backbone, because people are going to say some crazy things. They're going to do things because it's been done. It's been done to me. But how you approach somebody will determine their reaction, really.
That absolute. I mean, that is so big. And I was going to ask you, about a word to those who are disabled, and you just gave it.
Yeah.
Is it's almost like when somebody says something inappropriate, like, what am I supposed to call you? Well, call you by your name. I'm going to call you Amanda. You're going to call me Steve. I'm going to call you Amanda. I mean, it doesn't, it's, I mean, we can have nicknames and things like that, but it's done in innocent ignorance, I guess. But I love what you just said, because you could have just gone off the handle or whatever, but you turned around and you made that an educational experience. How can people follow what you're doing with Beauty Mark Community and maybe even get involved? Where would you send them? Website, social, whatever?
Absolutely. You can always go to our website, beautymarkcommunity.org. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always trying to get into the school system, and we're doing a fundraiser right now where we're donating 10,000 books to 10,000 schools here in South Jersey, strictly on disability awareness, because we believe that children need to learn this in school. And so if we donate the books, there's no explanation as to why you can't teach the kids, because we did.
Sure.
So,
to me, I don't think that we're doing enough in education and tearing that wall down and building a bridge. In fact, you just reminded me of my grandpa's sister and Aunt Elsie, and she was so precious. And from the time she was born, her right arm was just here. She she couldn't use her right arm. She could use her hand, but her right arm was always here. And I have on one of my bookshelves, I have a little thing that she made for me. It was a cross out of shells, and it's very special to me. And she was just such a special lady. And my grandpa took such good care of her, although she was when she was older, she was in an assisted living place. And I remember driving and picking her up for the holidays, and she'd wink and she'd say, "Oh, don't tell Ernest." I said, "Well, what, Aunt Elsie?" She goes, "I have a boyfriend."
Oh.
We're just laughing, and my grandpa's name was Ernie, but I miss her. I miss him as well, but just a genuine heart. She also had some mental, disability, but what a special lady. I mean, she's just so precious, and my grandpa had committed himself that he would take care of her, until she moved to heaven, and he did, but I love, there's so much more we need to talk about. We've got to have you come back on the show. We really do. What's the social handle?
Yeah, so it's beautymark_community. You follow us here. It's the same for all of our other platforms. I believe we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Facebook.
You're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
Okay, well, we'll make sure in the notes for this show that information is there. And we want to stay in touch with you. We want to have some more of this conversation. This has been incredible for me. It's been a really great experience, learning experience. I'm one of those guys that I'm always learning. I want to continue to learn.
Yes.
And you have graciously taught me well. And it's great to have you as a new friend. And please keep us informed at Utalk, and we'll have to get you back on the schedule again to continue to talk about this, because I think this is a much bigger issue. And having a conversation with you than what people realize. And if we can do something to get the word out, we certainly want to. So, Amanda, thank you. It's so great to spend some time with you. I look forward to having some more of a conversation. Thank you. Stay in touch with us. We appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate your time and your energy. And you just radiate your smile, your spirit. Thank you for being gracious to teach me. I've learned a lot in the show, and I'm very, very grateful. And it will make a difference. So we'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
All right. Stay blessed. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is Utalk Radio.